What pleased you most, Mick, out of the performance today?
What pleased me most? I just think generally players sticking to the game structure. Unfortunately, we just haven't been able to have, pardon me, any consistency with personnel. So I guess a bloke like Sheen comes in, fits in. Graham, who has been in and out of the side, comes in and plays his role. Wood plays his role. That's probably the best part.
You must have been thrilled with Sheen, I guess, picking up the pace of the game like he did.
Oh, it's terrific because it gives us another player. And I think that we have another young Irishman down there. He's not far off a game, and it probably won't happen this year, but he's younger still. So I'm pleased for him. His mum got over last night. I'm pleased for her, and I'm pleased for Zach because they both came over together 5 or 6 years ago, and the paths went in different directions and have come back. And I don't know what he had. He had 13, but he was pretty good with it. So it's good, good bonus.
The way the game, I guess the pattern of the game, the first half you were terrific. Did you, I guess, lose anything out of the second half?
Oh, I think you wouldn't want to be, wouldn't want to be the last show on earth because a lot of players that people would turn off, I suppose. No, it wasn't a good second half, but at the end of the damage was done in the first half. We were able to hold on to that lead, and that was probably the best thing of it. We ended up half-time lead of 46 and won by 39. I mean, they are a side that's vying for a final 8. Let's not take anything away from them. They're a good football side. There's some very, very good players on that side. They're coached well, and they had a lot to lose today. So it made it more important for us to measure up.
In the context of your season, what sort of value do you place on wins in terms of the development of the team?
I think it's terrific for our supporters for a start off. I think it's good for our it's good for our morale. I think it's good for cementing in the mind that this is the way we want to go. We want to play this type of football, and when we get it right, and when we're good at it and stay at it, that we can be highly competitive. And that's and I think outside of massive bad quarter against Sydney and got flogged by Essendon early in the season, I think we've had a couple of losses that haven't been overly good, but by and large we've been highly competitive. And I think these things just draw a little bit out of it to say, well, you can be good and lose, and at some stage you've got to be good and win. Now, it wasn't a great last half, I'll go along with that, but we kept them at bay. If you play poor football and the difference in the scoreline is, 6 points or 7 points, then we can cope with that because we know how good they are. I mean, you've got blokes like Bennell and Swallow, Prestia, O'Meara. I mean, they're going to walk into any side in the middle of the ground, along with other players. They can afford to have Matera as a sub. I'm not too sure what he ended up with. Plenty, I think. He's ended up with 17. So.
What are the parts you feel you've added to your game over, say, the last 5 or 6 weeks that you didn't have earlier?
Yeah. Rowan, that question is going to be, it's a very deep answer, and we've got to drag out what these things are. Like, I reckon our leadership has got stronger and more belief in themselves. I think players, and I'm only touching probably the surface of this, but I reckon players have taken on far more responsibility on the ground. I know we've got a very good people list. They're good people. But they've got to demonstrate on the ground that they're prepared to be respected and not necessarily liked because of decisions they make with their voice or their instructions. And that's been a big factor, because I think it'd be fair to say the group that I started with really played in a shell. They just never come out of it, and the confidence wasn't exactly the highest that you'd see. And I'm not, there's no pointing fingers here. That's just simply, that's perhaps the personnel of people, or personality. So that's starting to emerge, but also I just think that, the cementing and he's not the greatest full back or key back in the operations, but Rowe is starting to believe that he can actually mark the football and not just punch the football. White is believing he can actually play at both ends of the ground. Allard didn't have great stats and missed another shot on goal, but he can put massive pressure on, and he's appreciated because of that pressure. I think the recruitment of the players this year, we've played 7 of our draftees this year, and their maturity in the group is starting to show. Wood, Doherty, Sheehan today, there's only one game, we'll be careful about that one. Thomas is starting to emerge. You know, we lost Everett, unfortunately, but he was fantastic up to a couple of weeks ago. So I could talk to you for ages about this, because there's just subtle things all the way along, and we're not... I have this feeling that it was almost like we're not good enough, therefore we're not going to win a premiership, so premiership's the last thing we want to talk about. Well, internally I want to say that's got to be our aim. It certainly can't happen this year, mathematically can't happen this year. But, and I'm not saying it's going to happen next year, but you've got to take steps in your mind. That's what you're playing for. So you've got to play for a reason. And I reckon that the boys are starting to say, well, it's fantasy at the moment, but down the track, you say, well, hang in there long enough, you can't win a premiership without getting the top 4, I believe. So our aim is to be competitive enough to win enough games to get in the top 4. So why start next year? You know, start now having an impact so that you can have a good run at it through a pre-season. And I think those good blokes are now becoming good blokes playing good football.
So, I mean, it's feasible, you think, that the nucleus of this group could win a premiership?
No, I'm not saying that. No,
I'm not trying to get a headline, but I mean... No,
I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is you've got to give yourself a realistic chance. We have another good recruiting session, which we aim to do, and you never know what comes of it. But I'm saying 7 players this year that we recruited all have played senior football, and most of them successfully. So when you start to add on value, you add to your list. Clubs like Carlton right now can't win a premiership, one, because we have not the top 8 or top 4, because our depth, like Cruiser's played 1 game, I think. He may not have played any. Walker's out, Everett's out. You lost Yaron probably for the rest of the year. We've had no consistency, and you know me, I don't whinge about injuries because it happens. But so if you don't blame injuries, then you've got to have players that come in and take over that role. But it's also, the premiership won't be won without class. Top 4, you won't make the top 4 unless you've got class. So that's our goal, is to bring as much class into the side, and when that moment happens and you win consistently, then you've got a chance.
So you haven't got enough class as of now, but it's not
impossible
if you could get that.
Class. I'm not saying we haven't got class, but I'm saying that you run out very quickly when you bring in a lot of young kids, and that's what we did in the last 2 seasons of our draft. We brought in a lot of young kids. So they're going to mature. Menzel will only get better. He's in his 2nd year. Graham will get better. He's played his couple of games last year. He's getting better this year. Who else? A couple of young players this year. Cripps. He's in the 2nd, so he broke his leg. And he couldn't afford to break his leg. He missed 6 to 8 weeks, whatever it was. So we're just accumulating players as we go. And that's the only way. I've been in this game long enough to know that you've got to accumulate players, and when you've got enough players that can replace one another without a hiccup, and you're getting close, you'll know you get close because those players who come in play identically to the blokes that are out. And that's when you know that you've got a good list. That I haven't seen a premiership side won yet without 35 players, thereabouts, that can go in, hook in, you lose someone, you go, I didn't even know he was out. And
Sorry, Mick, what was the injury to Yaron there?
He's going to calf.
You'd expect that could be the season?
Oh, well, I wouldn't. I don't know the extent of the injury, but the fact that he knew he did it and he come straight off, he couldn't put any pressure on it. One would suspect that we will be cautious about bringing him back and then breaking him down.
Last one.
Can I just ask you about Judd? I know you've spoken about him previously, but every successive game he plays to that level, I reckon a lot more people are sitting there going, geez, it's going to be a shame if he doesn't go on with it. Are you feeling that way?
I don't talk players into playing, I talk them out of it.
You talk him out of playing. You wouldn't try to talk him out of playing.
No, I don't talk. If someone says to me I'm going to retire, I rarely ever try to talk the player out of it.
Right. Would you make an
But if he's not
exception
talking
in his
about
case?
retirement, I'm not going to talk him into it. I don't talk. There's some players who need to be talked into it because they're gone. Judd, Clement, Purser. I know I'm going back a long time. Purser and Clement retired from AFL football, VFL football for different reasons, but they had years left in them. Right? They know that, but you know, Jimmy had to go back because his wife needed a transplanted kidney. Only her mother was the donor, so he had to go back. Purser went back because I think the funds dried up at Footscray at the time. Juddy, really, if he says I'm going to retire, I don't talk people back in from retirement. If he says to me I reckon I can go on, I'll certainly be saying so do I.
Is this little period, the last 5-6 weeks, the best footy he's played under you?
Well, don't think we've hardly had him this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like last year.
He put some good ones in last year. I think he's been more consistent this year, though. I feel in, from memory last year, it's such a big gap, the games he played last year to finally coming into the side and then breaking down the first game. I thought he had some terrific quarters. What I'm seeing now are some really good, lengthy periods through the game. So, yeah, he's certainly playing some good footy.